Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to finish the last section of the sampler project. We're going to address weft floats, which is another design technique using plain weave that I think you'll find a lot of fun. So let's get started. Plain weave project. So we've got an open shed and the directions say weave floats, skipping the first 4 threads. Go over 4 threads, skip 4 threads, and then repeat. 4 over 4, under 4, over 4, under 4, over 4. So you've created a balanced pattern. And then you're going to beat. And then you're changing the shed. And you're going to repeat. Under 4, over 4, under 4, over 4, under 4, over 4, and finish under 4. And you can see a little texture developing here because you're skipping those threads, it's creating a little bump. And you're going to repeat again. Now we have 4 rows of weft. We'll do one more. For a total of 5. Then we're going to weave 5 more rows, balanced weave of this color. You might be wondering if your project is going to have all these little see-through spots in it. But you'll find once you've taken the product off the loom and it's relaxed and not under tension, that a lot of those little spots will fill together, and when we wet finish, which was what we're going to do today after we take the project off the loom, it will relax the fibers, the water will relax the cotton. Inclusions. And now we'll move on to inclusions. Now we did some inclusions earlier down in the last session, but I'm going to show you how to add some more. I'm going to take some of this roving because I like it because it's kind of the same color patterns. And I'm just going to shove it in there. Now for some more interest, I'm going to just add some of the yarn we've been using in our weaving that we haven't included for a time. So I've got some of the yarn, color number 3, and I'm just going to double it back on itself and just include that right in there. You have to be a little bit more careful when you get to the end of your weaving because the back warping rod is so close to the heddle, sometimes your shed isn't real clean. And you have to just be careful that you don't pick up a warp fiber from below. Now we're just going to create a little border at the end here and then weave until we can't weave anymore. And then we'll take the project off the loom. So I'm going to go back to alternating color number 1 and color number 2. Okay, I've created our little border right here and I'm going to compact it just by beating. You can just use a table fork. This is actually a tapestry beater, but a fork works just as well. And now I'm just going to weave until I use up as far as I can go, because the balance of this weaving will be the part we're going to use as the hanger. So at this point you can either continue to follow the pattern or you can just do plain weave all the way across. Because we want to have enough of a header at this section so that we can fold it over some kind of a hanging rod or however you would want to display it if you chose to hang it on the wall. We're going to do a couple more picks and then we're going to do a hem stitching like we did in the beginning on this end. And just like we did in the beginning, we want to leave a long tail so that we can do our stitching. At least 3 times the width, so this is easily 4 times. Then you're going to need your needle again. And put your heddle in neutral. And we're going to do bunches of 4. So I'm going to go around the first 4. And then come up 2. And we're finished. Now that we're all done weaving, we're going to take the weaving off the loom. And that's quite simple in the back. You're just going to cut across like that. You're releasing the tension. You're going to release the break in the front, and you're just going to unroll it. And here's where we started. And now you'll see the real advantage of tying these in bows and originally, because they're going to be real easy to pull out. So you're just going to release the bow on each knot. And now you're going to see the real advantage of doing the hem stitching here, because you can see once you take it off tension, you're releasing this fiber. Now remember, this was just our header. This was just what we wove to sample the tension and to give us our weaving a good start. And that's all going to come out. So we can remove the paper we had in there. And then we can start unwinding this out of here. Sometimes the easiest way is to actually trim it. Now you want to make sure you aren't cutting the warp strings, because once you've released it like that, then you can pull out sections. So there we have it. We have our piece with lots of fringe on the end. Now we're going to do a little wet finishing, and after we've done that, then we'll do all the trimming. You want to wet finish almost all of your weaving projects, because by wet finishing, it relaxes the warp fiber and the weft fiber to fill in all those little air spaces in between that you see when your project is under tension on the loom. So I've got it in a basin of room temperature water with about a drop of dishwashing detergent or shampoo. And you want to let it soak for 3 or 4 minutes. After your project has been in the water for 3 or 4 minutes, then you can lay it out. A towel works really well, a bath towel. Just kind of spread it out on the towel. Extend the fringe off the back, because it's gotten a little tangled when it's been washed. And then you're just going to kind of wrap it up. And doing this just gets the excess moisture out. Now you want to let your project dry, and then we'll talk about doing the trimming. So here's our sampler. It's all dry. Now we're going to do a little trimming. This is when you can cut off all these little tails, because after it's been wet finished, they're pretty much locked right in. If you didn't trim your rya knots right after you inserted them when the sampler was on the loom, this is a good time to do it too. Looking pretty good. Now I'm going to trim the fringe. Let's attach some things at the top of our sampler so that it can hang easily on the wall. So I've got this dowel that's just a few inches longer than the sampler. I'm going to place it in there and just fold the top part of the weaving over. And you can see that's why we wanted to weave a little bit extra at the top. It actually disappears. Then you want to pin, probably want to pin that with, to hold it. And we're just going to sew it in. So I've got some of the fiber that we used in the weaving. Just going to use a running stitch across the top. Now you could do blind stitching with the sewing thread to make it invisible. I just thought this might be an interesting addition. So we have our hanging bar inserted. Now we're going to take the cording that we made and just open it up at the end and slide the rod through there. And we're done. Congratulations, your first weaving project. To do the fringe twist, you divide the group of 4 into 2. So you have a group of 2 yarns in each hand, and you twist it to the right. You twist the right hand side to the right until it's tightly bound, and then you hold that and twist the other side to the right. And then when you've twisted both of them to the right, you want to put them together and twist them to the left onto themselves. When you're twisting the fringe, it often helps to have a book or some kind of weight on your project, just so you can give a little pressure on the fringe. You can buy an actual tool that's called a yarn twister. But this actually works pretty well, although if you were twisting many more threads than this, many more warp strings than this, it would get a little tiresome. And the last one. So now we've finished the bottom, let's address the top. I'm going to need a little bit of a hanger at the top of the weaving to hang it off the rod, so we're going to prepare that first. So I have 4 strands of some of the yarn that we were weaving with. I'm going to tie a knot in one end. And then I'm going to use the same technique that I used on the fringe at the bottom of the 2 different groups. So I have a cord. Tie a knot in the other end of the twisted cord. And trim it. And trim the first end. Let's attach some things at the top of our sampler so that it can hang easily on the wall. So I've got this dowel that's just a few inches longer than the sampler. I'm going to place it in there and just fold the top part of the weaving over. And you can see that's why we wanted to weave a little bit extra at the top. It actually disappears. Then you want to pin, probably want to pin that with, to hold it. And we're just going to sew it in. So I've got some of the fiber that we used in the weaving. Just going to use a running stitch across the top. Now you could do blind stitching with the sewing thread to make it invisible. I just thought this might be an interesting addition. So we have our hanging bar inserted. Now we're going to take the cording that we made and just open it up at the end and slide the rod through there. And we're done. Congratulations, your first weaving project.